Greetings to everyone. You can subscribe to my boosty. There will be exclusive content and lemon Naruto every day. This is a continuation of the story where Naruto gets a second chance, but in the guise of a girl. Chapter 28 to 35. Before starting the video, subscribe to the channel and like it. This is very important to me, thank you. Enjoy watching. Chapter 28. The second stage is over. Morning came unreasonably quickly for us. As I promised, it became quite difficult for Karen. Firstly, Sasuke and I have long been accustomed to getting up early and immediately performing very complex training sets, although there were no conditions for their implementation, but this did not change our plans. We got up early, kicked up, or rather, I picked up Sasuke, the bastard, withdrew the sleep-deprived girls and began training. Although it would be more correct to say that Sasuke caught everyone in Genjutsu and the classes were held there. As practice has shown, if a person is sure that he is doing this, this is reflected in his body in reality, although not so clearly. However, this did not stop us from harassing the girls during the check-in. Having given out a bunch of advice and wishes, brought them back to reality. Well, all I can say is that we were unhappy with their skills, especially me, and especially Karen's skills. Well, where have you seen Uzumaki lose in endurance to a simple clanless girl? No, I'm not arguing. Sakura is stubborn and has come to her senses lately, but still a shame. But nothing. They will accept her into the clan and there this shortcoming will be corrected, and for now we will return to listing all the difficulties of the morning. The second item on our list was training not the body, but the spirit and mind. Nothing particularly complicated, although I used training methods borrowed from toads. It's just a pity that you won't see any sharp rocks here, but, as practice has shown, meditating on one leg is also not easy, especially for an unprepared person. Well, the very last point, which clearly did not please the girls, was that they would endure this torment until the end of the second stage. True, I repent. That same day, immediately after breakfast, I went to Miyabokuzen, leaving all matters to my clone. For example, he had to convince Team Number 8 not to tell anyone about Karen. I left enough chakra for the clone, and he could easily last the remaining days until the qualifiers. However, all this did not change the fact that it is impossible to drag a clone into Genjutsu, so Sasuke did all the training and bullying, and something tells me that he had a blast with the girls. I myself decided to start training to master the hermit mode at least in the initial stages, and at the same time hand over a letter to Tusen with Arrow Sennin. Otherwise I know him. Surely now he is racking his brains over how to justify taking away a strategically important kunoichi from Kusa. Moreover, peaceful weaning, which is a priori impossible. It wasn't exactly dangerous to send a message through the ANBU, but our team already attracted too much attention and such swarming could raise questions. We didn't need this, so we had to dodge it. Although there was another motive for such secrecy. While waiting, the participants of Chunin Shuriken were forbidden to leave the tower. The implementation of this clause of the contract was carefully monitored, but I found a loophole, which I took advantage of. I really wanted to master the technique that became Tosan's calling card before the fights began. After all, something told me that this time the battles were unlikely to go as smoothly and I shouldn't hope that I would get to fight with Kiba, who had not entered into strength. However, even if he did, his technique is not a problem for me. I'm simply too fast for his attacks, and Futon has always been my ally, and, as practice has shown, weapons imbued with this element can penetrate even Susano with proper skill. In general, after weighing all the pros and cons, I decided to go away for a while to plan my conscription. This will allow me to approximately double my training time, and the presence of experienced mentors will have a good effect on the speed of learning new things. As it turned out, I was right in my desire to improve myself. The presence of a fairly strong team from Kiri increased the number of teams passing, even if only by one. However, this added problems for us. I somehow didn't expect that the Mitsuki would send a team filled with genome carriers to a regular exam. Okay, one, but all three? And according to the law of meanness, 2 of them went to us, and 1 to Kiba. It is not in Izuka's destiny to taste the power of my fist. However, it's for the better. Suigetsu a strong opponent, but not cruel. He prefers to wound rather than kill. True, it's a pity that Hozuki didn't go to Sasuke. He would have loved him with Chidori in an instant, but Kami-sama was with him. However, this fight was far from the first. I found out who Kiba's opponent was a little later, but for now I was biting my lips because of Sasuke. He got the worst opponent. And he was bad if only because we knew nothing about him. I saw him for the first time. This is not a Kadoira, whom Sasuke defeated without any problems last time. Here the abilities are cooler. However, the Uchiha did not disappoint. Although my only question at that moment was where did he get the water dragon technique sealed in the scroll? I didn't give him such joy, so where did it come from? I didn't rack my brains for long. I just asked directly and received the answer that it was a gift from my last training session with Itachi. I forgot that he has a second element Suiton. The question of where he got the not-so-easy-to-make scroll did not arise for me. I knew that our clans traded, and Sasuke was also the heir. He is unlikely to have bad equipment. After congratulating Sasuke on his victory, I returned my attention to the fighting area, although, to my chagrin, there was nothing new before Kiba's fight. However, the Inuzuka fight didn't bring anything interesting to me. I knew how dangerous Suigetsu was. After all, he was Sasuke's friend and often visited us in that world in Konoha. We even sparred with him a couple of times. True, then I had to run and hide from the Uchiha throughout the village, but it was worth it. I had a rough idea of the abilities of the Hozuki clan and, without surprise, stated that Suigetsu won. Still, it's not for nothing that Karen called him Kappa. He really looks like a water spirit. One more fight, and then they announce me and Haku. On the one hand, I should be happy, because I know his exemplary skills, but on the other hand, what should I be happy about? In that world I won thanks to Kurama's chakra and Yuki's reluctance to fight. Here everything is a little different. However, there was nothing to do. I had to go down. After the judges' go-ahead, I decided to do what I do best, that is, improvise. However, I was not going to leave anything to chance. Life has taught me caution. I'm no longer that child who rushed headlong into battle. I needed an escape route. The only thing that came to mind was the jishiki that Tusan gave me before leaving for the exam. While I was on my bokuzen, I adjusted them a little, and even though I can't move as many times as Tusan, one is enough for now. That is why I threw in response to Haku's senban not just kunai soaked in futon, but also with explosive seals attached. The rising sand will provoke Haku, who does not like violence, into action, and will also hide the 2 unusually shaped kunai that I threw at the stone hands located at opposite ends. I had no doubt that they would hit the top point. Was it in vain that Sasuke and Tenten were chasing me around at one time? That's right, it's not in vain. I have always been a talented student, especially where I am interested, and the ability to throw kunai makes life a lot easier. As I expected, Haku couldn't help but take advantage of the chance I gave him. As soon as I removed the curtain of sand with the help of futon, I realized that I was surrounded by its icy mirrors. How familiar this is! I wasn't going to agree to the offer to give up, and this was a great opportunity to cheer up Hinata. She's even more downtrodden here than I remembered her at that age in that world. Considering that, besides her, only Neji and Lee and Gaara remained, a battle between the 2 Hyugas could not be avoided. No one will allow two hyugas to perform in front of the daimyo at once, and with such a difference in skills. However, on the other hand, it's much easier to stop Neji than Gaara, so I'll be glad if she doesn't get him. However, there is another option. This is Akato Aroi, damn him, but it's unlikely that anyone will allow guys with such different skill levels to go out. However, it's worth encouraging her anyway. Without confidence, she has no chance of winning. True, it seems to me that my words were taken as an attempt to show off in front of Sasuke, but does it really matter? The one who needs it heard me and remembered them, but the rest don't care. Although, to be honest, my attempts to instill confidence in Hinata had another reason, and a very prosaic one. What do I think? The clone needed time to tune into the Jushiki and move without problems. The conversation gave it, but there was already a matter of technology. Using futon, Shinkigyek was not difficult. The main thing is, I didn't forget to pour more chakra into the jutsu. Given the speed and size of the small balls of condensed air, it is not surprising that Haku's mirrors failed. It's good that at least they saved their creator from injury, and the guy escaped with only a slight fright. Without this, Haku would not have been able to stand on his feet, although he could not escape from the seals that Kachan put on me before leaving. However, knowing his devotion to others, I, out of harm's way, wrapped him in a fishing line and poked him with a senbon with a sleeping potion. You never know what might come into his head, especially if he feels that he has not lived up to Zabuza-san's expectations. Having received confirmation of my victory, I went to the place reserved for spectators, but when I ran into Hinata on the stairs, I could not resist and, holding her hand, said, "You are strong, Hinata. I believe in you. Remember, only you are the master of your destiny." I don't know, maybe it was these words that played their role, but before my eyes everything happened again. Neji's ruthlessness might be amazing, but I haven't looked at what lies on the surface for a long time. Hinata was right, there was pain and suffering in his movements, although this did not remove his guilt for what he had done. However, soon he himself will understand this, and then Hinata will have the most faithful and devoted assistant, coach and support. I believe in them. But that didn't stop me from trying to appeal to his heart, trying to help him find himself earlier. I don't know if he understood my words, but I had to try. True, this did not prevent me, having spoken, to leave after the carried away Hinata, leaving a clone in my place. Surprisingly, Kurama did not pester me, felt that it was not the time, and even resignedly shared the purified chakra when I decided to help stabilize Hinata's condition. I was able to restart her SCH and help Ironing heal her heart. The danger has passed, and now the hospital is waiting for her, and I should return. Judging by the fact that my clone did not dispel, the fighting there is still going on. As soon as I returned, I realized that I was right. The battle was still going on, and how it was going. Gaara behaved strangely. His eyes showed confusion, and the thirst for blood that I felt in the forest of death was not there. Apparently, Shikaku stopped influencing him with the emanations of madness. A raccoon is a sweetheart when it's calm. It's a pity, this happens rarely, and it only began to appear after a heart-to-heart conversation with the old man Rakuto during the war. In general, it seems to me that if I had not, according to the old man, been the incarnation of Azura and his heir, Shikaku would not have given up his attempts to pretend to be a madman. So, while I was indulging in memories and thoughts about the problems of existence, Gaara got angry. In principle, his fight was no different from what we had already seen, except for one thing. At the very last moment he did not crush Lee's arm and leg, he simply enveloped him in sand and waited until he was declared the winner. Unusual, right? Although, a moment before that, I felt Shikaku's chakra burst into the sand. Apparently, he decided to intervene in the battle and not allow my friend to be harmed. That's what I like about Bijou. They are understanding and loyal. If you become their friend, then you don't have to worry about being stabbed in the back. They won't betray you. So Shikaku, despite the difficulties and possible retribution, did not sit on the sidelines, but intervened. It's worth visiting him a little later. It seems that he has become accustomed to his new power and will not refuse the opportunity to share it with me. After all, there is no other way for him to show off to the other bijou. What this arrogant infection will not tolerate. I can hold back a satisfied smile, which, judging by Obito's stunned look and the angry hiss on Sasuke's part, was misunderstood a little, but I don't pay attention to it. I'll talk to Sasuke a little later and make peace, but the opinions of others. Well, let everyone invent to the best of their depravity. What do I have to do with it? I'm calmly waiting until they finally decide to announce the results of the fights and hold a draw for the third stage. It's not that I care that much. I know the skills of all the genin who entered this stage too well, but I'm interested in knowing who I will fight with. I usually ignore unnecessary information and go to the front row to pull out my number. Apart from the fact that 2 more people reached the finals, and the fact that the numbers changed a little, no significant changes were expected in the battles. True, I will have to fight with Suigetsu additionally after defeating Neji, and don't say that I'm too self-confident. I will do it, and there is no doubt about it. Afterwards, if everything goes well, my opponent should be Sasuke or Gaara, but it depends on your luck, although I am sure that the Uchiha, just like me, has no doubts about his victory. Well, the rest of the battles, as you understand, also remained unchanged. Shika will fight Temari, and Shino will fight Kankuro. We wish you success and patience. I feel like the clouds are gathering and the feeling of danger is screaming in a bad voice. As if this Chunin Shuriken would not become a breeding ground for unexpected people for us. I don't like the surveillance Sasuke sends too much. He simply wouldn't sound the alarm, and besides, the conversation with Toussaint and Ikeoji-sama is picking up. I don't want to lie, but I can't tell everything. Maybe I should blame it all on Kurama? And what? No one will bother asking him. Although, I would poke my nose in. So, let's reject this option. Aji-sama seems to be no worse than me in this regard. Recklessness, this is a family thing for us, and all Uzumaki suffer from it. Chapter 29. A month of training. If anyone thinks that right after the end of the qualifiers I rush to Gaara, then they are deeply mistaken. I believe that first we should solve our internal problems, and only then go and instill in them about peace and friendship. In general, my first step was to talk with Toussaint in the presence of Aji-sama and Fugaku-san. I don't know how our gatherings would have ended if it weren't for the support of Kachan and Sasuke, but on the whole we parted happy with each other. Fortunately, taught by bitter experience and proud of our quick victories, the men did not insist on the sources of our knowledge, and I, looking with honest eyes, blamed everything on Kurama's scent and on the words of the mentally unstable Shikaku, whom I had to face in the forest of death. Judging by Ikeoji-sama's grin, which kept curling his lips, he didn't believe Shikaku's excessive talkativeness, but he took the rest of his words into account. However, he did not shoot us, giving in under Kachan's pleading gaze, but his own gaze became thoughtful. I hope he doesn't dare to drop in on the tanuki for a sneak peek. Not really. Should not. Still, Gaara has a specific defense and strangers won't approach him so easily, and considering that any Fuin I know needs contact with the skin, even if it immobilizes him, then until they reach him through a layer of sand, a lot of time will pass. Help will arrive in time, but the clan does not need any unnecessary problems, nor does Konoha as a whole. Phew! It's a real weight off your shoulders. This means that no one will bother Shikaku, and, in the end, am I in vain to be the child from the prophecy? It was not difficult to ask the toads for an audience with old Gamma Sennin. As it turned out, he himself wanted to meet with me. Along the way, he also awarded me a new nickname: One Who Walks Through Worlds. However, despite all his senile quirks, he gave an order request to help me in everything, which I took advantage of through Fukasaku-sensei, putting pressure on Ero-sennin, and he, in turn, on Tusan, thereby dissuading them from hasty actions. However, Tusan himself was not eager to break into Gaara's subconscious and understood perfectly well that this was not a solution. His main question was what was happening to me. True, the old toads phrased that. The time will come and everything will fall into place. If it did not calm him down, then made him think and not make unnecessary movements. This was undoubtedly to my advantage. I didn't want to let anyone else in on the secret of our appearance here. One Kachan was enough. The only thing that bothered me about all this was that, despite my participation in the return of the lost blood, I was made a fool. No, they praised me and made me happy that now I should take patronage over Karen, who I saved. True, they immediately clarified that in connection with preparations for the third stage, I was temporarily relieved of my duties as a mentor for a new member of the clan. How happy I was! Oh, how happy I was! She literally glowed with the awareness of her own importance in the eyes of her family. Mentally, however, I wanted to strangle the smiling Nechan and the happy Anai-san, like a fox in a henhouse. However, despite all my dissatisfaction, Kurama's offer to show what it means to have two Uzumaki in agreement caused me wild enthusiasm. And judging by the instantly fading smiles of the others, they understood something. The next point, which did not cause me great delight, was that the Ero-sennin also went to the world of summoning for the entire month of training allotted to us. No, I don't argue. I missed my godfather, but that didn't change the fact that he told Tusan absolutely everything he saw. That is why I devoted all my training time to what came out worse for me, namely seals, and not just any kind, but embroidered on clothes. No, I didn't need these seals at all. I was used to doing without them, and if necessary, I had the whole clan at hand, but it's too quickly to learn the Sennin mode or show miracles in mastering the powers of Kurama, and even more so show knowledge of elemental techniques there was no desire. However, this did not change the fact that my Bokuzen is big, and Ero-sennin this is an Ero-sennin. He often went in search of inspiration. Therefore, with grief in half, I was able to master the Sennin mode, even if I spent an inadmissibly long time on entering it, about 15 minutes, but nothing, I can still reduce this time. And this is not the only problem, because compared to 10 minutes, and a little later, almost a whole hour, of being in this mode in that world, I could only be in it for a minute. It's a shame, but I understood perfectly well that my body simply could not withstand more natural chakra and it would not be possible to increase the time spent in this mode too quickly. You need to train and meditate a lot to reach the same level. However, along with training and mastering Sennin modes, I also did not abandon training in elemental jutsu. I finally had the opportunity to study my second element. Or rather, learn how to use it more easily and continue the training that I started with Shursui-san. It turned out that due to the fact that I abandoned training, everything would have to start almost from the very beginning. But if Kato is still clear with whom he can teach, I remember that Gamakichi had such an element, and he clearly found a mentor for himself among the toads. But what to do with Doton? But if I awaken more Suiton, I'll be halfway to mastering Mokuton. Just a joke, of course. Mokuton, this is not just a merger of Doton with Suiton, it also requires infusing a certain amount of natural energy, which is unlikely to happen in the near future. And I don't have Suiton and perhaps don't have one in the future, so there's no point in drooling over the impossible. I'm strong enough without Mokuton. In general, the appearance of 2 more elements allowed me to train erosenin, which, as it turned out, both Kato and Doton had, and he himself admitted this. I simply created a couple of 100 clones and sent them along with my godfather to train. This quickly tired him, and he ran away for a short time, but even so I managed to practice a little in what he didn't need to see. Although I don't think he didn't notice the oddities, the toads were on my side, and this clearly calmed him down, because they were incapable of betrayal. However, even despite his reluctance to exert himself too much, Jiraiya was an excellent sensei. He explained clearly, plus he had developed exactly those elements that I needed. That is why in a month I was able to achieve some progress in the elements I studied. No, I didn't spit fire dragons or organize entire swampy swamps, but I already managed to dry a leaf, in classes with Kato, or compress a small pebble, in classes with Doton. I don't argue, my successes were rather modest, but it was enough for me. After all, my main element has always been futon. And Sasuke spat fire, just as he sparkled with Raiden. Although, I wonder if the Uchiha discovered any new abilities during the transition? After all, it can't be that I'm the only one who feels this way. It's curious, but you'll have to wait until you return to find out. But for now it's better to train in taijutsu, because the erosenin has just returned from the human world, which means he's full of energy. And I am sure that he will not refuse to help. He simply cannot. Well, I think you understand that I maintained a frantic pace of training throughout the 2 months that I spent on my bokuzen? Although, to be more precise, it was 68 days, not 2 months. That is how much passed on the mountain while a month passed in the human world. Who would have known how much I missed everything during this time? And especially on normal food. Shimabei, of course, loves to cook, but what they all consider a delicacy, in my understanding, is very far from this concept. It's good that Jiraiya didn't forget about me, and after each absence from the mountain he brought a sea of goodies sealed in scrolls. Apparently, Kachan caught him and instilled in him the idea of the benefits of world peace, and also asked about me. The only thing, it's a pity that he didn't bring information about Sasuke. No, I knew that he also went somewhere for training, and almost a day earlier than me, but still, where he would go and, most importantly, with whom, he did not tell. And this is not fair. If I had been a little more hysterical and jealous, I would have pulled out all his hair for such an outburst upon his return. However, I am who I am, and I understand perfectly well that Sasuke went precisely to train, and not to have fun. I may be wildly curious about where and with whom, but I understand that if he didn't say, it means it's either dangerous, or he just wants to make a surprise. However, one way or another, as soon as I return and meet him, I will interrogate him. I'm worried. The moment of my return was rather prosaic. I returned a few days before the start of the last stage and was greeted by Kachan and Mikoto-san very joyfully, but by the others very casually. There was a feeling that everyone simply had no time for me. At least the entire male part of our family had that same look, more beautiful than being put in a coffin. However, the reasons for this were quickly found. As many as 2 kage decided to honor Konoha with their visit, and both had already arrived. I think I shouldn't talk about the sincere love of all 3 rulers. Moreover, the daimyo and many nobles, who were attracted by the promise of entertainment, did not add cordiality to anyone. As I understand it, everyone was stitched up, and Tu-san and Fugaku-san first of all. One tried to maintain neutrality between the rulers of countries and villages, and the second maintained Konoha's security at the highest level. Judging by the fact that no one has yet declared war on the country of fire and Konohagakure, they are succeeding so far. It may not be very successful, but in such a matter the main thing is the result, and it, as they say, is obvious. No one killed anyone, everyone was accommodated and relatively happy. However, according to Kachan, enough spies were caught during my absence. Their number exceeded all conceivable and inconceivable boundaries. Even for Chunin Shuriken there were too many of them, and the most disgusting thing, some of them were not at all from the daimyo or other villages. Most of them did not even know who they worked for. This was the most dangerous thing. Someone has set out to help Konoha with the exam, which could end badly. Even Uchiha patrols won't save you from everything. After listening to Kachan's confused thoughts and trying to calm her down as much as possible, I almost immediately met Aji-sama, who reminded me of my ward. I had to go in search of her. However, Karen did not have to search long. She ended up in the hospital, learning to revive fish under strict supervision. Looks like she's already found her calling. Seeing me, Karen was happy and, since her training had already ended, asking me to wait, she went to notify her mentor about this, and then dragged me off for a walk. During the walk, she spoke quite emotionally about how she was accepted into the clan. How kind and friendly everyone is here. She spoke with noticeable tenderness about my Kachan and admired the powers of Eni-chan. Apparently they were keeping an eye on her all this time. I make a mental note not to forget to thank them, and at the same time clarify what they taught her, and whether they taught her at all. Maybe they improved their basic knowledge and skills, and they also surrounded Kachan with care. Depending on their answers, you can make your plans. With all my desire, even after the exams it will not be possible to immediately go on a trip. We'll have to wait at least a couple more months. Well, okay, not a couple of months, but definitely 2 weeks, and it's better to spend them usefully. Overall, I enjoyed our leisurely walk and conversations with Karen. It was interesting, and a little later almost all the girls from our class joined us. And even though Hinata couldn't move too fast yet, and Sakura and Ino couldn't stay with us for long, it was fun. Karen gradually became one of her own, which could not but rejoice. Perhaps here she won't become such a sarcastic bitch as I remember her there. Sweet and shy, albeit with the beginnings of the violent temperament of all Uzumaki, I like her much more than an animal that has gone through fire, water and copper pipes, baring its teeth at anyone. There she was driven into a corner too early and was never allowed to get out of there, or rather, they were given it already when such behavior had become the norm, so they got what they got out of it. Everything is a little different here. She had not yet felt like a powerless game, although she was close to it. Her character should remain softer. Well, overall I was pleased with the day I spent, although I missed Sasuke. However, I understood that he would return. He must return to the 3rd stage, not earlier. However, understanding this did not at all ease my melancholy. I was too used to him always being there, and I simply couldn't accept the opposite. And to be honest, I didn't really want to. Perhaps this is selfish, but I did not want to part with him for a long time. I already spent more than 2 months without him. True, no one allowed me to indulge in despondency for a long time. I was only halfway from the Uzumaki quarter to my family's house when Gaara slipped out of the shadows. To my surprise, I didn't notice it before. Apparently, I was so lost in myself that I completely disconnected from reality. Damn, you can't do that. And why didn't Kurama warn me? I warned you, but you didn't hear. There was an immediate response from Red. Be careful. I know without you. I muttered, and much more friendly. Did you want something, Gaara? Yes, the rather unusual-looking guy nodded slowly. There is no madness in his eyes. He is calm and extremely collected. Now, more than anyone else, he reminds me of Gaara the Kazekage from that world. Here, an equally short word, and he extends his clenched fist to me. I raise my eyebrows in surprise, but stupid. Remember B and Gyuki. Kurama roared in his subconscious, and everything fell into place. This is exactly how the fastest transfer of chakra and simple messages between Jinchuriki occurs, so I no longer hesitate and knock my fist against Gaara's fist. We only touched fists for a couple of seconds, but that was enough for me. Dry, like a desert wind, Shikaku's chakra easily penetrated me and carefully settled in its designated place. This is so right. See you in the third stage, Gaara's quiet voice and the rustle of sand. A moment later there was not even a hint of someone else's presence near me. See you, I echo and move along the Jishiki home. The desire to walk around Konoha at night disappeared completely. Crap! Why did I feel so uneasy? Chapter 30. The day before the third stage. Sasuke, such a bastard as it turned out, returned the same evening when I met Gaara, but having decided to show his best side, he went to visit the guests only the next day. And already after lunch. Need I say that I did not greet him kindly? No, my morning was cheerful, like any morning in a house where there are small children, and in our case, even in duplicate. But let's not forget that I was the least tired member of the family, and they were temporarily entrusted with taking care of them to me. On the one hand, I was even glad. My brothers knocked all thoughts out of me, and I completely let go of all the problems. But on the other hand, I haven't been so exhausted for a long time. Plus, I couldn't sleep half the night because of Shikaku and Kurama quarreling in my subconscious. Well, at least then the tanuki calmed down and decided to sleep. But this does not change the fact that I didn't sleep half the night, spent half the night calming down my capricious brothers, and as soon as I lay down, the morning came. Naturally, I was not distinguished by complacency, and then there was this overly caring red-eyed bastard. And he came along with my Tosan and Itachi. Naruto, I want to ask you out on a date, Sasuke told me in his eternally indifferent manner when he was finally able to escape from the hands of my Ka-chan and Bie-chan. I'm coming with you. Without allowing me to answer, Itachi, who was accompanying Sasuke, and Aoi and I came out in unison. What, right with each other? Damn my tongue, my enemy! Naruto! Tosan was indignant, but Ka-chan and Ba-chan were openly having fun, just like Kurama in my subconscious. I'm sorry, it came out. I repented and added, since you really don't want to let us walk around Konoha alone, maybe it's better to assign Nariko and Shisui-san to us? And let's consider this a double date. Agree, this will raise fewer questions than our walk under the supervision of two guys. It seems that Tosan was interested in my words. However, I can't blame him here. Shisui-san shows great promise and in the future may take a fairly high place in the Uchiha clan. Such a marriage is beneficial to both parties. Little infection, and who said that I would agree? Nariko's angry tone did not please me. Feeling that I smelled something fried, I tried to run away from Nichan, enraged by the arrogant interference in her personal life, but I didn't have time. They grabbed me and, holding my head under their arm, began to rub the top of my head. So it wasn't you who kissed him under the windows yesterday? Replacing myself with the nearest ottoman, I asked. You were already asleep, how could you see me? Nariko was indignant, and immediately bit her tongue under the curious glances of Ka-chan and Ba-chan. About. Even so. Akeoaji-sama's voice was heard from the door. It seems that while I was bothering my sister, guests came to us. This is what you all found in the Uchihas. I have guys like this growing up in my clan. Apparently, Nariko was confused and did not know what to answer. Aji-sama, don't worry, you still have Aoi and I left. Marry him to someone from the clan. I couldn't resist, and seeing how Anai-san's eyes, which had just calmed down, began to sparkle in a bad way, I jumped up and said, well, I went to get ready, while you please make Shisui-san happy. Naruto! Judging by the furious scream that came from behind me, I escaped on time. You can't live in peace. Kurama told me, chuckling. Come on, Kurama! I smiled cheerfully, but finished seriously. You also noticed how tense they all are, they need rest. But that's not the only reason you decided to arrange such a date, right? Kurama remarked shrewdly. You're right. I nodded. I want to tell Sasuke about the meeting with Gaara and seek advice. About what? The fox frowned, and jealous notes appeared in his voice against his will. About your premonitions, besides, you also felt it? I asked him. Yes. Yesterday Saiken crossed the gates of the village. Kurama nodded and reluctantly admitted. You're right, it's better to talk about this with your fiancé right away. No matter how much I want to admit it, he is one of the few who can help if anything happens, and he won't ask unnecessary questions. That's it, what am I talking about? I nodded and accelerated my preparations, because, judging by the fact that I no longer hear angry voices from below, and Isen has calmed down, which means there is no point in delaying too much. Naruto-chan, you look dazzling. As soon as I went down, I immediately received a compliment from Itachi. However, his eyes said that he did not put more into his words than what he said. It's a pleasure to do business with him. And most importantly, he is one of the few who can communicate with me without danger to health from Sasuke. True, he still cast a dissatisfied glance at his brother. You flatter me, Itachi, and I smiled, pleased with the effect produced. It was not in vain that I wore the dress given to me by Ka-chan. And clones created on time can work wonders in a short period of time. It's not for nothing that Bachan sent me to kunoichi courses after the war. It was there that we were taught how a real woman should behave. And no one neglected other little things. Although who would know how much hair I tore out while learning how to do beautiful hairstyles, and most importantly do it quickly, it's scary to remember. I've already sent word to Shursui, he'll be here soon, closing his eyes for a moment, showing that he understood and appreciated my hint in the address. Itachi answered. That's why I see Nariko is not here. I laughed cheerfully and walked up to Sasuke. There is plenty of space on the sofa next to him, and I miss him. It's a pity that there are too many people here, otherwise I would love to sit in his arms, but I still have everything ahead of me. I'm sure that together we can escape from surveillance, even if only temporarily. However, we didn't have to sit and wait for a long time by the sea for weather, nor did we have to make speeches appropriate for the moment. Shursui-san soon arrived and was pleased to have the opportunity to hang out with Nariko, even if he knew full well that the double-date version was far-fetched. Rather, they didn't want to leave me and Sasuke alone, so they remembered him, but even so he was happy. This is what love does to people. When we waited for my beloved sister, we immediately said goodbye to everyone and left home. Fortunately, by that time Toussaint was no longer paying attention to us, discussing with Itachi and Akeoaji-sama something that only they understood. Apparently there were some problems with the organization of the tournament, and now he was trying to involve new people in this moment. Well, good luck to him. Walking under supervision was not very interesting, but for lack of an alternative I had to accept it. However, we soon came across sheets announcing the premiere of a new film by Fujike's Yuki, and I expressed a desire to watch it. No one began to argue with me, and now we are sitting in the back rows and watching another story about friendship. How many years has it been since I last met the Snow Princess? I remember she left me her autograph then. It will be necessary to find out how her life turned out here. Perhaps she, like there, will need help, then I will gladly take on that mission in Yuki no Kuni Star. While I was indulging in thoughts about a possible future, Sasuke wasted no time and took advantage of the darkness to pull me closer, forcing me to look into my eyes. For a moment I saw the Sharingan activated, and now I find myself in my subconscious. You bastard! I could have warned you. Naruto, what happened? As always, Sasuke got straight to the point. Yahoo damn, that idiot woke up Shikaku. Ah, got it. You don't have to explain. Sasuke looked gloomily at Shikaku who had appeared. However, I wasn't thrilled about it either. Shikaku, you and Kurama have been on my nerves all night. I turned affectionately to Ichibi, feeling Sasuke carefully approaching me from behind and hugging me, sharing his warmth. Okay, I understood, you're not in a good mood, so I'll sleep some more. I immediately hurried to retreat into the very depths of my subconscious. Still, there are benefits from Sasuke's nasty character, and considerable ones. Who else can boast that the Bijus shy away from him when he is in a bad mood? That's it, no one. How did you manage? Sasuke chuckled, waiting for the end of our showdown. Last night, Gaara waylaid me on the way home. I shrugged, a heavy sigh escaped against my will, and I added, he gave me some of Shikaku's chakra. Is it really that simple? Sasuke raised an eyebrow in surprise. Yes, but that's not what worries me. I frowned. Tell me, when you returned, did you notice anything unusual? Apart from the fact that my entire clan patrols the streets around the clock and many have not been home for weeks, preferring to relax right in the precinct, Sasuke began thoughtfully. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I interrupted him and, noticing his wary look, explained. When Gaara gave me Shikaku's chakra, I felt a surge of panic. The sense of danger literally howled. Could this be because of Gaara? Sasuke clarified seriously. No. He now very much resembles that Gaara. I shook my head negatively. The feeling of danger was strong, but not directed at any of those whom I had already met here. When you said that, Sasuke frowned even more. I also felt something like that, but I didn't pay attention, chalking it up to fatigue after training. Moreover, I grinned. Yesterday a Saiken carrier arrived in our village. 3 bijou in one place? Sasuke tensed. Badly. If we really noticed Zetsu then, what am I talking about? I nodded at his words and wearily rubbed the bridge of my nose. I don't know what to think or do anymore. I'm afraid for Kachan. I'll talk to Tasama. Sasuke's lips pursed, and it's hard for me to blame him, because after I got to know Fugaku-san, I can say with confidence that they are similar. Well, 2 Sasukes in the same territory. In short, it's better not to catch their eye. I think I can make him double his vigilance. Yours are already bending over backwards. I shook my head negatively. But warn me anyway, and I'll talk about my concerns with the Kawaji-sama. You're right, but then I'll talk to Shisui-san and Itachi. He nodded in agreement to my words. I will ask them to stay close to her so that if something happens, they can come to her aid. And my Kachan, most likely, will also be next to Kushina-san. Let them both be backed up. Give Kushina a Jushiki, and I will ensure her safety. Kurama intervened in our conversation. Or have you forgotten that it contains my chakra? Oh, exactly. I perked up. Then I rely on you, Kurama. That's great, but now get lost, otherwise you've been sucking in the understanding of your escorts for 5 minutes. My red-haired friend caustically remarked, and pushed us out of my subconscious. Well, Kurama, I'll remember this for you. Chapter 31. Evening Conversations. As soon as Sasuke and I left my subconscious, Nariko attacked me with accusations of my immorality. I had to laugh it off, but I liked Shisui-san's attentive look, and do you know why? It's just that this look showed that he understood what we were doing, which removed a lot of problems and at the same time gave Sasuke the opportunity to drag him out for a conversation without any problems. Why such difficulties? It's just that, as I understood from some slips of the tongue, he refuses to talk about it directly, of my fiancée, until recently no one took him into account. Or rather, they did not take into account Sasuke from this world. He was a child. The dramatic maturation and general changes that occurred after we entered these bodies did not go unnoticed, and it was noticed, but not yet taken seriously. True, in this regard it was easier and more difficult for him at the same time. Much of his behavior was attributed to awakened clan heritage, but not all of it. However, no one could afford to lose another person with Mangekyo, and our fathers are satisfied with this state of affairs. Such children are beneficial to them, and their pride is greatly enhanced. But this is the main difficulty, because now they are watching us and waiting, but what they will wait for depends on us. Kami-sama, when I dreamed of a family, I didn't think it would result in such difficulties. However, I didn't torment myself for long with thoughts about the complexities of relationships in my family. I always preferred to solve problems as they arose, and now I was happy with everything. Yes, due to the certain status of my family, there were many restrictions that I had not encountered before, but all this paled before the realization of the simplest truth: my parents are alive, and I will never be alone. That is why, despite possible difficulties in the near future, I sincerely enjoyed the walk through my native village. But sooner or later everything ends, so the walk has come to an end. I'll have to organize parties like this more often. It brings people together and helps you relax. And a satisfied smile from Michan is worth a lot. When we finished our walk around Konoha, which was joined every now and then by one of our new old friends, and returned home, tired and happy, I realized without surprise that Akeoaji-sama had not left anywhere, or had arrived specially before our arrival. It doesn't matter though. I noticed Kachan's interested glance in my direction and Aji-sama's emphasized calm. Judging by the fact that Tusan is absent, as well as Erosenin and Bachan, he is not here for them. The only thing that comes to mind is he wants to talk to me. No one could be deceived by my apparent carelessness in the morning, nor by my desperate attempts to be alone with Sasuke. Should he not understand and know all the possibilities of genjutsu? And the red-haired guys randomly meeting here and there couldn't help but be wary. No, I have nothing against such unobtrusive supervision, and the cinema belongs to the Uzumaki clan, which means that not only Shursui noticed that Sasuke was using the Sharingan, my clan's censors could have noticed something more simple from the slightly changed chakra current. I don't even know whether to be happy that Aji-sama decided to talk to me. Naruto, is there anything you want to share with us? Akeo Aji-sama began to speak, thereby resolving my doubts. What are you talking about, Aji-sama? I asked, deciding to stall for time, at the same time trying to feverishly think through options for conversation, but desperately realizing that any preparations were useless. Not in front of a person who will sense any falsehood, any reticence. We'll have to speak directly. Well, for example, what did you talk about with Sasuke and Genjutsu? Akeo Aji-sama smiled knowingly. And so that there is no uncertainty left at all, I will clarify, a short grin, and he continues. While watching a film by the famous actress Fujikaze Yuki, your fiancé used the Sharingan. What? Nariko screamed. Nariko, don't be indignant. I chuckle and, squinting slyly, continue. The Sharingan allows you to get into someone else's subconscious, and their time flows the way the owner of the dojutsu wants. However, what you do there depends on your relationship. You can ask Shursui-san to show you all the delights of such a pastime. I'm sure you'll like it. Nachan, who has a good imagination, and seal masters can't do without it, instantly blushed. So you? Yes, I nod seriously, noticing how Kachan's lips are trembling, and Aji-sama covers her smile with her hand. I add, we talked about a possible attack during the third stage. Perverted, Nariko began in response, but realizing what I just said, she shouted, What? So you did not go on a date? Shut up, Nariko, she was interrupted by Kachan's tense voice, and already to me, in a tone that did not tolerate objections, "Naruto, explain." Yesterday evening the bearer of Rokubi came to the village, removing the mocking smile, which clearly inflamed Nichan even more, and turning towards the tense elders, I answer. Where does this information come from? Aji-sama puts down his cup of tea and looks at me harshly, immediately reminding me that he is not only a kind uncle, but also the head of the clan, who, despite the loss of his homeland, has not lost his status as great. Kyubi said, I answered honestly. Hey! I may be offended by such treatment. Kurama rumbled in my subconscious. Do you want me to tell them your name? I sarcastically asked Red. Can he be trusted? Akeo Aji-sama narrowed his eyes, thereby preventing Kurama from answering me. Still, Kyubi, is not very friendly towards people. And he has a reason. I couldn't hold back my chuckle. Maybe I won't argue Aji-sama did not deny this. But this does not remove the question of the veracity of this information. Aji-sama, I can feel the carriers of bijou, and besides, to someone, but Kyubi won't lie to me, you can ask Kachan. I stop the flow of Akeo Aji-sama's objections with a wave of my hand and redirect his attention. However, I myself looked pleadingly towards Kachan, who was in no hurry to both confirm and refute my words. She's right, Kurama-sama won't lie to her. When I had already stopped hoping for her support, Kachan answered. Kurama-sama? Everyone present was amazed, but if Aji-sama and Nichan spoke out loud, then I mentally. Kurama, do you have anything you want to say? I suspiciously asked the furry one, who was now suspiciously quiet. My chakra remains in her. I can contact your mother at any time, came the answer, given to me clearly with reluctance. Kushina knew about this and took advantage of it, and I did not refuse to talk to her. After all, she is quite an interesting person. And how long have you been communicating with her? Watching Noriko try to extract details from Kachan, although without much result, and Aji-sama thinking about something, I asked. From the first day you told her about who you are, he answered boredly and asked with an incomprehensible emotion. Are not you angry? What's the point? I'm surprised, but then, realizing what's behind the question, I seriously add, nothing can be changed, and I trust you. However, next time, warn me about something like this so that I won't be surprised. Fine, there was undisguised relief in the growling voice. So stop it, Noriko, Aji-sama slammed his palm on the table, thereby interrupting the distraught Eni-chan, who, it seemed, had already forgotten why she began to come up with all her arguments. Naruto, you didn't just start talking about Rokubi, did you? A searching look, and Aji-sama adds, is he dangerous? Like all shinobi, I shrug and continue more seriously. I'm not worried about Kiri's Jinchuriki, but about the fact that in total there will be 3 of us here. For my part, I can guarantee that I will control myself, but that is not the difficulty. And what? Noriko frowned, and judging by the fact that no one interrupted her, she expressed a general question. During the stage in the Forest of Death, Sasuke noticed surveillance, and judging by the reaction of Shursui-san and yours, Eni-chan, I cast an expressive glance at her. The ANBU didn't notice anything, and I don't like it. It is not difficult to provoke a Jinchuriki who is not friends with the bijou. I think there is no need to explain what consequences this could have for Konoha. As far as I have noticed, Suna's Jinchuriki is unstable and lately he has been acting too strange, Aji-sama frowned. But if you hadn't told us about Rokubi, we wouldn't have known about him for the time being. You don't have to worry about Gaara. Even if someone opens his seal, Shikaku will not leave it on his own, and even if there is a daredevil who tries to pull him out by force, he will resist to the last. I chuckled and, noticing Kachan's surprised look, explained. He has 2 bad memories from last time. What about Rokubi? Aji-sama clarified after looking at me for a long time. I have to meet him in person. I purse my lips displeasedly and continue. This is the only way I can give an exact guarantee, not before. However, as far as I know, in the sense of Rokubi, he was always calm and in character he strongly resembled Katsuya Obuchan. Until he is personally attacked, he will not interfere, and his Jinchuriki seems to be quite phlegmatic. In general, they deserved each other. Tomorrow the exam will begin after lunch, and before that the Kage and their entourage will meet in the Hokage residence in the negotiation room. Although Minato would rather receive them in his office, there is enough space there for more people, Aji-sama muttered thoughtfully. I think there won't be any problems getting you there, but you'll have to take on the guise of my assistant for a while. No problem, I nod, mentally thanking my extensive practice in the ANBU of that world, where I didn't have to learn anything like that. That's good, Aji-sama clearly considered our conversation over and nodded, but I had slightly different plans. By the way, which of the guests, and who in general, knows that Ka-chan is no longer a Jinchuriki? There was silence after my question. No one outside the village should know. Aji-sama narrowed his eyes. Childbirth greatly weakens kunoichi, even not Jinchuriki. I calmly met his gaze. What is the probability that that observer was eyeing the bearer of the bijou? Considering that the feeling of being followed only existed while we were next to Gaara, and even yesterday, when I saw him, you met with this maniac and didn't tell us anything? Nichan rose up, but Ka-chan's hand silently placed on her shoulder stopped her, and I continued. I felt danger, but not from him. I finished my thought. So he's not dangerous? Aji-sama frowned. Danger is near him, I nodded. But it is also aimed at us. Considering who he is. Anyway, Ka-chan, be careful tomorrow, I concluded. Don't worry, I'll show them, Ka-chan smiled, and I was sincerely glad that her dissatisfaction was not directed at me. Now I understand why people who know her cringe so much when they talk about her anger. Truly, it is not for nothing that she bears the nickname Akeo Shishio no Habanero. I have already recovered enough after childbirth. A surprise awaits my enemies. I understood you, Aji-sama said, glancing nervously towards his sister. The clan will be warned and will help. Thank you, Aji-sama, I smiled with relief. Go to rest, he shook his head. You'll have a hard day tomorrow. I smiled gratefully, feeling that all the fatigue that I had been ignoring all day was falling on me. And this conversation really exhausted me, albeit mostly morally. I really should rest and get ready for tomorrow. Chapter 32. Rokubi. Morning came unreasonably quickly. It seemed that I had just touched a pillow, and Ka-chan was already waking us up and calling everyone to come down for breakfast. I had to get up and, with my eyes closed, feel my way into the bathroom. I really wanted to sleep. A contrast shower corrected the situation a little, and I even felt like a human. True, I did not feel elation, nor did I feel joy from the approaching third stage, where I could show everyone what I was worth. I wonder why. I really wanted this. However, I had already received the approval and recognition of Tusan, which I so strived for, but it did not make me feel any easier. The eternal worm of doubt gnaws at you. What if it's all a dream? I sighed tiredly and, shaking my head decisively, leave the bathroom. I should get ready right away. After that I might not be able to go get my equipment, so I need to concentrate. There may not be a second chance. Naruto, go down into the subconscious. Kurama's voice overtook me just at the moment when I had just finished distributing the scrolls with weapons and sealed techniques among the seals that Ka-chan had made on my belt. All that remains is to secure the pouch, and I would be completely ready. Wait a little, I'll finish now and come down. I responded and, having attached my pouch, sat in the lotus position on the bed, so that it would be easier to immerse myself, and then there would be no incidents. However, considering that I decided to dress as comfortably as possible for the upcoming exam, that is, in almost standard leaf shinobi attire adjusted for my favorite and clan colors, then I am not in danger of getting tangled in the fabric of the skirt upon returning to reality. And then they swam, we know. At first, I couldn't wear a kimono or women's clothes at all, and even now, sometimes I forget myself and get confused. Which is not surprising, after all, skirts were not in honor among the ABU. What did you want, Kurama? As soon as I find myself in my subconscious, I immediately become interested. We talked and decided. Red began wearily, resting his head on his paws, that you should not show off your capabilities in front of the jinchuriki of other countries. We realized it a little late, I grinned. I already lit up in front of Gaara. This is different. Kurama waved it off. It couldn't have been any other way. Both jinchuriki and bijou were worth each other. What are you hinting at? Shikaku's indignant cry was heard. I'm saying in plain text that you're crazy. Kurama bared his teeth in the direction of the tanuki who had appeared in the subconscious. Look who's talking, Shikaku said caustically. You yourself are no further. Let's arrange your own family showdowns later. I interrupted the scandal that was already gaining momentum, and seeing that too far from friendly glances were crossing at me, I hastened to change the topic. Kurama, maybe you could let me in on what you came up with. Okay, let's assume it turned out. Red snorted and, putting his head on his paws, continued. So, we woke up Saiken tonight and talked to him. He was too lazy to fight his copy, so he offered a slightly different option. Which? I bet my eyes sparkled with curiosity. As you know, we are essentially pure chakra, which acquires bodies of flesh and blood only outside the host. Kurama slowly began to explain, and I realized that until he finished his story, I would not receive an answer to the question I was interested in. This has been the case since ancient times, when we were still sealed in our father Rikudo. We were only able to obtain flesh and blood bodies after, in general, Red wants to say that you only have our chakra, and not the largest amount. Shikaku interrupted Kurama impatiently. Therefore, in order to convey it, you do not need to be personally present in the subconscious. Eh? I blinked stupidly. Tanuki is right, dissatisfied because he was not allowed to finish the story. Kurama, however, agreed with Shikaku, although, judging by his look, I will again have to put a block on our connection, because with a sore head after their squabbles I didn't want to go. And that's why they treat each other this way? Saiken is not like me or him, Kurama continued meanwhile. He is calm and used to solving things leisurely as befits. I'm a slug, Saiken intervened and, looking at me, added, I will become a ball of dense chakra, which you will transfer by touch. Will there be any special requirements? I glanced sideways at these three. No, he calmly responded, and when the other two-tailed creatures tried to intervene and say something, he simply, accidentally, struck with his tails dangerously close to them. All desire to speak out disappeared from them, and it's hard to blame them for this. Saiken's mucus can be acidic, if desired. We have already studied the echoes of the local Rokubi's power and came to the conclusion that he is no different from me, so it is safe to say that there will be no fight. And my chakra will provoke the chakra of my double into action. You won't have to strain and be afraid of opening. The splash from Utakata will cover everything. That's good. I nodded. Otherwise, my relatives already have a lot of questions for me. There is no need to add more to them. Minato is not an idiot. A snort was heard from Kurama. Not an idiot. I agreeingly agreed with Red. But you can add a guess to the case. I grinned cheerfully and, clapping my hands, announced, Okay, since this issue is resolved, then I'm off. Get out, you could say. It came from my back, and I left the subconscious, and then immediately put a barrier to communication with the bijou. If they want, they will still be able to contact me, but the screams of the tanuki and the fox that do not concern me will bypass me. As soon as I opened my eyes, I heard a knock on the door, and then Nichan looked into my room and said that everyone was waiting for me. I stretched with pleasure and head towards the kitchen. Breakfast, this is sacred, and it is not known whether you will be able to have a snack somewhere later. After all, there is an exam. Food pills, of course, are nutritious, but such disgusting. Entering the kitchen, I notice without surprise that Toussaint is absent, but Aji-sama is drinking tea, squinting his eyes contentedly. I greet everyone and receive a discordant answer, and then I proceed to breakfast, which is already waiting for me. Still, there is nothing tastier than food prepared by a loving Kachin. I squint my eyes in bliss and literally savor every bite. I see you've already had breakfast, Naruto, stated Aji-sama, who was looking complacently at my leisurely satiation. Yes, I nod, putting away the now empty cup of tea, and thank my Kachan for the food and care. Then come with me to the clan. He gets up. As promised, I have prepared everything you need, but before sending you to Minato, I need to explain why, distracted for a moment by Kachan. Thanks for the food, Kushina, we're leaving. You're welcome, Anai-san. Kachan nods and, affectionately stroking my hair, tucked into a spikelet, adds, good luck. Thank you, Kachan. I joyfully accept the simple affection and, reluctantly pulling away, turn to Aji-sama, raise my eyebrow in surprise and ask, something serious? No, he shakes his head and slowly heads towards the exit. It's just that our clan is responsible for the barriers around the arena and spectator seats, both ordinary and privileged. You should find out a little more details before you go and give your report. Minato may ask some questions out of spite. Yes, and this may be useful to you. Still, there are 4 hours before the exam, why not spend them usefully? Whatever you say, Aji-sama, I nod, knowing full well that such information is not shared so easily. Even Toussaint has nothing to do with it. Aji-sama decided to play it safe after my warning. So my fears are not so groundless. I silently follow Aji-sama, who on the way to the Uzumaki quarter does not talk about business. Any outside observer may generally get the feeling that an older relative is trying to cheer up a young relative. Against my will, I succumb to his mood and begin to maintain a casual conversation, willingly smiling at my acquaintances and cheerfully responding to wishes to show everyone off. However, despite attempts to cheer me up, no one dares to stop me, and everyone, after saying a few words of support, immediately says goodbye, promising to come and watch my fights. But not much time has passed since I appeared here, and already such changes have occurred. Although I'm glad about this, because as soon as I got here, the relationships and views are like in distant childhood. It was difficult to force myself to smile as brightly as before. If it weren't for Sasuke, I would have broken down. However, all's well that ends well, and I must do everything to end well. As soon as I reached the quarter and found myself in Aji-sama's house, I was pulled into his office, in which there was a table empty of papers in the middle. If I understood correctly from the color, then it is entirely made of chakra-conducting wood, a rather expensive thing. But why is he Aji-sama? Afterwards he made about 50 seals, half of which I didn't understand, and it seems to me that there were some archaic ones that remained before the unification of the villages and the reduction of hand seals to a common denominator. Second, and he touches his hands to the table that surprised me so much, and on it a 3-dimensional map of Konoha takes shape. Wow! I thought genjutsu couldn't be sealed. This is not a genjutsu, but a real layout, Aji-sama chuckles, guessing my thoughts. But you're right, it wasn't easy to make, and you're one of the few who know about its existence. He casts a menacing look at me, which I withstand with some difficulty, and then continues, so. And an avalanche of information hits me. Where are the barriers installed? How can they be activated or, conversely, deactivated? Particular attention was paid to the arena itself, and the surprises hidden in it. My head quickly began to swell from the abundance of information, but I persistently continued to remember and structure the information in my brain. They shared too valuable information with me, and something tells me that even Toussaint doesn't know about half of the traps. They were clearly installed not for general use, but to have escape routes. I couldn't even resist asking Aji-sama about this question, to which I received a rather vague answer, which boiled down to the fact that everything will come in handy in life. I sincerely liked this approach, but it was difficult to remember everything. It's good that at least I have someone in my head to take notes on everything that was said, and the chances of getting help if needed are great. Well, that's all for the main issues. Finally, after a 2-hour lecture without any interruptions, Akeo Aji-sama concluded. Now it's half an hour of rest, you'll just come to your senses and put what you've just told, and then, and with a magician's gesture, he took out a small scroll with a seal already set and threw it to me. You will pass this on to Minato and meet with Rokubi. He has just entered the Mizuki's retinue and is next to your Toussaint. Yes, I put the scroll away in the seal on my hand and obediently follow Aji-sama, and then, after taking a few sips of tea, which his wife literally thrust into my hands, I close my eyes and fall into meditation. Half an hour flies by in an instant, but I have more or less put my thoughts in order and, thanking Oba-chan for his hospitality, I leave Aji-sama's house. Coming out of the quarter onto the street and looking around, I realized that if I walked along the road like a normal person, I simply wouldn't have time to get to Toussaint, because I have a lot of friends and not everyone wished me luck. Considering that I had difficulty escaping the grips of members of my own clan, and if you believe Kurama, members of Sasuke's clan are walking nearby, in general, I didn't tempt fate and made my way further to the Hokage residence along the roofs. It's not that there are fewer people there, but everyone is in a hurry and they don't have time to chat. That is why I was able to get to Toussaint's office in a record 5 minutes, you must admit, against half an hour of passing the Uzumaki quarter this index. Moreover, the road from Aji-sama's house to the gate of the quarter is hundreds of times shorter than from the gate to the residence. Hokage-sama, if you please? Having waited until my delicate knock was answered with an invitation to enter, I asked, looking inside. A quick glance at Toussaint's guest showed that Aji-sama was right and the Mizuki and Yudikata were sitting here. My gaze clings to Terumi-san against my will, and I can barely suppress a malicious smile. I'm wondering, does Ka-chan know that such a lady is sitting next to her husband and in such attire? And how did I not notice before that her clothes do not hide anything, but on the contrary, they show off all their charms? Did something happen, Naruto? Toussaint's short glance at the Mizuki did not go unnoticed, and judging by the menacing look he gave me, it's better not to know about this episode. In particular, the fact that Terumi-san sat in such a way that, when bending over for sweets, she exposed something that should not be exposed in front of married men. Separately, we can add, especially those married to women from the Uzumaki clan. Akeo-sama ordered to give you the scroll and tell you that everything is ready, Hokage-sama. I nodded understandingly and bowed to Toussaint's distinguished guests as a sign of respect, and then went directly to him and handed over the scroll. Why you? He raised an eyebrow. Or have you decided not to participate in the third stage? There is more than half an hour until the official start of the third stage, I shrug. Don't worry, Toussaint, I'll make it in time. So this sweet girl your daughter, Hokage-sama? Terumi-san became interested in me. The same Kazekage reacted much calmer. It looks like Gaara is in no hurry to share information with him, but that's none of my business. Yes, Toussaint nodded, briefly looking at the scroll I handed over and putting it away in one of the drawers of the table. She advanced to the third stage by defeating Hakayuki. He couldn't resist the hairpin. About. Terumi-san admired. Come closer, I want to get a better look at such talent. Having received Toussaint's nod of approval, I obediently approach her and mentally check with Saiken whether he is ready or not. Having received the answer, yes, I calm down and calmly wait for what Terumi-san is going to do. Ideally, it would be if she sat me down between her and Yudakata, but if something happens, you can always accidentally stumble. To my joy, I didn't have to pretend to be clumsy. She spun me around like a doll, sat me down next to me and began asking me about the details of the battle. However, as soon as I started answering, my hand was completely accidentally, I really had nothing to do with it, touched by Yudakata. Saiken, deciding that it was time to act, instantly reached out to his double, and I had to pull my hand away from Yudakata's hand, which was suddenly covered with bubbling bijou chakra. However, we should give him his due. He dealt with such a mini breakthrough of someone else's chakra quickly and, apologizing, left our society. Before the exam started, I didn't see him again, but I was calm, because Karama and Shikaka unanimously convinced me that everything went smoothly. True, I didn't like Toussaint's irritated look, but we silently agreed that I would remain silent about Terumi-san, and he would not raise the question of my involvement in the incident, especially since there were no marks left on my skin, and the rest nonsense. Chapter 33. Third Stage. Obito's POV. I went to the third stage reluctantly. I couldn't get my mind out of yesterday when Shursui and Itachi gathered our group and told us some pretty interesting information. No, I wasn't surprised that it was they who found it, but the source of this information. How could Sasuke know about this? Where did he get information about another Jinchuriki in the village? If neither I nor Kakashi, who was also present when meeting the guests from Kuri, saw any oddities in Yudakata. Yes, we didn't even think about the fact that a bijou was sealed in it. The only thing we noticed was that the Mizukage had a pretty good attitude towards him, and that's all. However, considering the practice of villages to make Jinchuriki of Kage relatives, it is not surprising. No one wants to spoil relations with a relative of the ruler. Idiots do not live long. I don't like all this. I really don't like it. Having 3 bijou in one territory is dangerous in itself, especially considering what we saw with Suna's Jinchuriki. I dread to imagine what they could do together. There is also an iron confidence that something will happen to Sasuke, and Naruto seems too relaxed, but no, you can notice her too attentive gaze. True, if it weren't for yesterday's conversation, I would never have understood this. She held up very well until she went to the Toad's plan for training, and even after that it was difficult to suspect her of anything, only if you knew where to look. Now I'm not even surprised that Fugaku-sama so easily made the decision for her to join our clan. Despite her open behavior and lively character, she holds her face no worse than an Uchiha. I'm even beginning to suspect that her eternal cheerfulness is just a mask. I hope I'm wrong, because she's acting similar to Kushina-san, and if she were, Akeo-sama would have sounded the alarm by now, but he doesn't do anything. I would even say that now there is a struggle for her favor, which is also strange. There is too much attention on a simple girl, even though she is the daughter of the Hokage, and in general has great potential. It should not be. Obito, as soon as I appeared near the arena, Kakashi appeared next to me. Apparently, I will spend my further path to the team in a company, not the worst option, but I know my friend too well to be sure that our meeting was not without reason. Where is our team? I nod at him and continue on my way. I'm not going to stop, because I have to say a few parting words to the children entrusted to us. However, if we don't rush, we will have time to talk, Fortunately, there are about 40 minutes before the start of the fighting and 15 minutes before the official start, when all the kids will be brought out for everyone to see and begin to compost the brain with propaganda nonsense with grains of truth and truly valuable information. In total, there's still an hour before the fighting. We'll have time. He and Rin are already in the room allocated for those who have reached the third stage, Kakashi responded quite calmly. And here's what's unusual. Naruto arrived with Minato-sensei, and later joined Sasuke. And? I glance at my friend, who, as always, is calm, but I don't believe it. He didn't just start talking about Naruto. Something happened while I was fulfilling my obligations to the clan, and could not meet with them. I wonder what. Sensei and his daughter arrived, accompanied by the Kazekage and Mitsuki with their retinues. Kakashi chuckled. And Naruto was chatting so sweetly with Mei-sama. And what's the problem? I looked at my friend in surprise. The Mitsuki, of course, is a peculiar woman, but Naruto knows how to win people over. I'm sure these two lovely ladies will find a common language. My voice becomes quieter and quieter. Two interesting pictures began to flash after my own words. I remember a couple of my missions related to sending messages to this woman. Fortunately, then Kakashi and I performed them together, and Rin did not see how the Mitsuki met us. Of course, I understand that it's the easiest way to extract information this way, but, Kami-sama, I'm a married man. The only thing that saved us then was that we were members of the clans and students of Minato-sensei, otherwise I would not have given a penny for our lives. The intentions regarding us were very clear. Don't let Kami-sama. Kakashi shudders at my words. It seems I'm not the only one who remembered those missions. And in general, I wanted to say something else. And what? I ask without interest, trying to drive away the pictures where Naruto adopts Tsurumi's behavior, and we are overtaken by punishment from Kushina-san for not keeping track. I wonder if Minato-sensei will have any long-term mission, preferably away from Konoha and Hinokuni in particular? Although it's unlikely, if my fantasies are even 10% fulfilled, there will be no one left to ask to cover us. One little animal sang to me here. Kakashi, clearly understanding my throwing, glanced at me, that literally 5 minutes after Naruto entered the sensei's office, the Jinchuriki Rokubi flew out of there. Moreover, he looked disheveled and even frightened, which, compared to his always imperturbable face, was at least unusual. Are you saying this has something to do with Naruto? I look at him in surprise and see a consonant nod instead of an answer. I frown at this and clarify. Have you contacted the others yet? The singer's long black tail has already flashed among the others. All that remains is to warn you. Kakashi shook his head. Yes, sir, I see. It seems that Minato-sensei decided to take at least someone from his personally trained and selected team with him, in addition to his completely devoted bodyguards. Apparently, he also feels something is wrong. Didn't they sing anything else to you? I look suspiciously at my friend. Otherwise, everything seems too suspicious. Well, unless you consider that it was Akeo-sama who sent Naruto to the sensei with the information that he gave him yesterday, then no, Kakashi shook his head. And by the way, we have arrived, he said, opening the passage doors for the sensei in front of us. Oh, Obito-san, Kakashi-sensei. I heard a cheerful shout, and I saw Naruto waving his arms at us. I wonder why she calls me San, and calls Kakashi-sensei? Not fair. Well, are you ready? Seeing this positive girl, I start smiling against my will. And why did I only think that this cheerfulness mask? Now such thoughts seem blasphemous. Of course we will show them all. She defiantly raises her hand clenched into a fist. It's not in vain that we train so much, right, Sasuke? And turns to my cousin, who is looking bored at all this. A little further, the rest of those who passed with their mentors are also trampling. Yudakata, whom Kakashi was talking about, is standing right there, and his gaze every now and then sticks to the figure of our student, which my little cousin really doesn't like. He's glaring like that, but at least he doesn't use the Sharingan, and that's okay. Pfft. Short answer, and he turns away from us, returning to the interrupted activity, that is, rubbing a hole with his eyes on the jounin of someone else's village. We need to follow him, otherwise this is not the point. Of course, I don't believe that Sasuke will lose his temper, but it's still worth following him. You see, Sasuke agrees. Naruto was not at all disappointed with this answer. Sometimes it seems to me that they don't need words to understand each other. True, it also seems to me that she reads people like an open book. At least when she saw how I looked from Sasuke to Utakata, she instantly reacted, and my cousin received a sharp elbow in the ribs. How interesting. He wasn't even indignant, and, it seems, on the contrary, he felt guilty. They won't believe whoever I tell. Well, since you both agree, then good luck. I sincerely wish them. Especially you, Naruto, your first fight. Don't worry, no Hyuga can shake the Uzumaki's resolve. The look becomes hard for a moment. Besides, Neji himself got a good beating. We ask participants to enter the arena. The loud voice of the jounin who was responsible for judging at the third stage sounded, and the children pulled towards the exit. Look around, sensei. Naruto's barely audible voice carried through the air, and she, smiling, ran out after the others. Damn! Knows when to run away so as not to answer awkward questions. A doomed sigh escapes Kakashi and I at the same time, and we exchange glances and follow Rin, who hastened to take our seats in the stands. There is nothing more for us to do here. We wished him luck, and now we will have to leave to become simple spectators. Still, the third stage includes a lot of fighting and we are forbidden to help our charges. Well, to ensure that everything is fair and that no one will definitely help, separate places have been made for the participants, and they will not return here, so there is no point in standing in a stuffy room. We had barely reached our seats when the first battle was announced. Namake's Naruto and Hyuga Neji. The genius versus the girl with a sunny smile. It would seem that everything has long been clear and there is no point in waiting for something, but only those who have not met Naruto for the last 6 months could think so. The fight promises to be hot and interesting. Give up. Who would doubt that Neji would want to talk? Still, the Hyugas love to show their superiority over others, but the guy doesn't yet understand that there's no point in burying himself. He chose the wrong person for his attacks. You can't win. You know, Neji, a ringing voice sounded in response, I may not be the strongest, but I know one thing for sure, Uzumaki don't give up. It's a pathetic sight, you don't look like Uzumaki and have nothing in common with them, he snorts in response, and now we see how he takes a stance for clan taijutsu. It looks like someone has become overconfident, it's time to show that you will never fly. Okay, try, there is mockery in Naruto's voice, and clones fly towards Neji, while the original remains in place. Hyuga easily deals with the clones and inevitably follows Naruto, but she is not going to go into close combat. The clones were just a distraction, and then a water dragon flies towards Neji. He has to use Kaiten, but as soon as he stops, one of the clones he had not destroyed earlier throws a kunai at him, and, surprisingly, hits him. How does Naruto know about the blind spot? However, the kunai, not saturated with chakra, could not cause serious harm and Neji overtook Naruto, a blow to the heart, and a clone? When did she manage to replace herself? Doesn't matter! As soon as the clone disappeared, the original appeared behind him and slammed Hyuga into the wall with a powerful kick. He simply did not have time to react. True, Naruto is in no hurry and allows him to rise, with an absolutely calm face as he watches him, spitting out blood, rise and take a couple of steps forward. Again there are clones, and he has to use Kaiten again, because he is not able to keep track of everyone. On the one hand it's correct, but on the other he has almost no chakra left. After all, Kaiten is voracious, and he is too young to wield it at the proper level. This fight is already over. Neji, you understand that I have already won, right? The guy is interested in Naruto, and I can't help but feel sorry for the guy. He was defeated effortlessly, and he cannot help but understand this. I can't lose to you, loser. These words were spoken almost inaudibly, and I was able to understand them only thanks to the Sharingan, which allowed me to read these words on my lips. A slight smile from Naruto, and here she is, not at all afraid, walking towards the swinging guy. He leans over and says something in his ear. Why doesn't he attack? Why is he standing still? Why do I see fear in his eyes? I think the fight is over, Naruto calmly declares, pulling back and knocking out Hyuga with a blow to the neck, while Neji's widened eyes stand before my eyes. What did she tell him anyway? Chapter 34. The beginning of trouble. The fight with Neji was quite short-lived. Experience against stubbornness and reluctance to admit one's mistakes won again. However, I won not only because of experience. Long training at the limit of my strength also yielded results. However, looking at Neji sliding down the wall, I did not feel joy or elation. I remembered too well how in that world he told me about his clan and the fate of the side branch. No, then he accepted and understood his fate, but he never saw how I fulfilled my promise. Then it cost me a lot to remake the Hyuga seal so that it only protected the eyes, and did not limit the use of the Byakugan. I had to suffer the most with the subordination function, but I managed. True, if Hinata and Hayashi-san had not been so well disposed towards me, nothing would have worked out, but we managed. I even managed to make the seal invisible. The only thing the Hyuga elders liked about it was that they could protect everyone. Although it is worth noting that they resisted innovation for a long time, but the war left too much of an imprint. Hinata, having lost her brother, became tougher, and they had to give up. Neji, you understand that I have already won, right? I asked the question, watching as Neji stands up and destroys another batch of clones. However, this does not matter. I had already installed a paralysis seal on him. Those kunai were not saturated with chakra for a reason. They simply would not have withstood the double load. Now all I have to do is put the seal on and he is harmless, because he does not have the strength to destroy the Fuin. I can't lose to you, loser. The guy's stubborn gaze again plunged me into the past. I saw the same bloodied, dying friend who blocked me from Jubi's attack. It hurts how painful it is to remember fallen friends. However, I know that many pairs of eyes are watching me and I have no right to weakness. A slight smile usually appears on the lips, but the eyes, covered with bangs, probably speak for themselves. Mental effort, and the seal of paralysis is activated. I see a shadow of surprise in the watery eyes and calmly walk towards him. I know that in my eyes now there is no fun that has become familiar to others, but it is now unnecessary. He won't understand my words in this case, and I have no desire to have fun. An adult Neji appears again and again in front of his eyes, saying, "Because you called me a genius." And I don't want history to repeat itself, but I also don't want him to keep his hatred inside. He wounds himself first of all, and only after Hinata, who considers herself to blame for the death of her uncle. If this continues, they will not be able to overcome childhood fears and resentments and move on. You know, Neji, my voice is soft and quiet. I deliberately came closer and said directly to his ear, "No one should hear my words." I feel his fear, but I'm not going to stop. Stop, idiot. I ignore Kurama's hysterical voice in the depths of my subconscious. Maybe later I will regret my actions, but for now I am confident in them. I had a friend from a side branch of the Hyuga who complained about fate in the same way. He had a father who was a twin and entered into the main branch by right of seniority. My voice is even, but I myself am far from so calm. When it was necessary, to protect his elder, he did not hesitate to die, but before that he said, "I am going to die not for the sake of Hyuga, but for the sake of the family, brother." I stepped back for a moment and, looking carefully into his eyes, "Don't let the past make you weak, depriving you of your wings. You still have a choice." My eyes turn red for a moment with a vertical pupil, and I see shock in the eyes opposite. It was deprived from birth. "Is it true?" I grin. "I'm too stubborn to grieve about it. Hatred, it's too disgusting a feeling to live with. It took me years to get over it and find my wings. But the choice is yours." Blinking and returning my eyes to their usual color, I carefully looked into Hyuga's eyes, widened with understanding, which is significant. There was no fear there. I squint contentedly and, nodding to myself, sharply hit a special point on the neck, and then catch the limp body. I carefully lay him on the ground and, turning to the hesitant judge, declare, "I think the fight is over." "The fight is over." The jounin immediately came to his senses. "Winner Namike's Naruto." "So why?" I hear Kurama's dissatisfied voice in my subconscious. "I had to help him," I respond calmly, eagerly accepting congratulations from the other participants. "The only thing," Sasuke just looked at me accusingly and shook his head. However, he understood perfectly well why I did this, and did not show his dissatisfaction with anything else. Although he perfectly showed his attitude by simply nodding and not coming up to congratulate him personally. Crap. I still haven't had enough problems with him. My only hope is that he will soon change his anger to mercy, otherwise I will have to figure out how to make peace with him. "Come on, Kuramushka." I heard Shikaku's voice, and I directly felt how Red's whole body shuddered and the fur on his tail stood up. "Naruto always, what did you call me?" Didn't let me finish listening to what I, according to Tanuki, always do, Kurama. "Yes, I understand that there's still a second and I go deaf, so I hastily shield myself from the raging Bija. Fortunately, this is not difficult, and despite the squabbles, they will not let their chakra go beyond the seal, which means there is no need to worry. Next fight, and it was I who abstracted myself from the screaming in my head in time. Dosukinuda vs. Sakato Iro. Instantly, everyone who patted me on the shoulder and congratulated me on my victory stuck to the observation window, and those named went down. I don't even know who to bet on. But what am I talking about? Aroi, other than drawing out chakra, had no trump cards. However, after a moment I was convinced that this was not so. Akado used Suetun, and quite skillfully. Although, if it weren't so damp in the arena, the water was still there on my water dragon, he would hardly have been able to create Suetun, Suigaten Star. Even so, it's amazing. This technique is not kept in the library for genin. It seems that Orochimaru could not have done it here either. However, knowledge of water techniques did not save Yaroi from the sound techniques that Dosi used. Kinuta simply sprayed all his attacks, and then used Kayamaizen *** and incapacitated him. Well, the examiner intercepted his attempt to control everything with a kunai, declaring him the winner. The next fight was between Shikamaru and Temari, which did not bring any new impressions. This lazy guy used almost the same strategy as I remembered, and then gave up. You should have seen Temari's face. How did I not pay attention to this last time? She is very proud, and for good reason. She is truly a strong kunoichi. That's it, Shika, you got it. Which I did not fail to tell him when he got up. Heh! You should have seen how warped he was. There wasn't even enough for my favorite, problematic, one. However, I don't feel sorry for him. I remember how comforting Temari filled his house in that world, so let it be. Although I won't pimp unnecessarily, let them figure it out themselves, not children anymore. After Temari returned, dissatisfied with her deserved victory, Kankuro and Shino were called to the arena. Well, what can I say about this fight? Both opponents tried not to use close combat, although for different reasons. Kankuro hid behind the puppets and tried not to grab the Kikeichu, and Shino was afraid of poisonous weapons. They ended up dancing at some distance from each other until Aburaim was able to surround the entire arena with bugs and drive him into a trap. Although it is worth noting that by that time he had been hit a couple of times by blades hidden in Kankuro's puppets. They could not cause mortal harm, but the poison began to act. As a result, Kankuro did not have time to give up when Shino became ill and was taken aback. However, an attempt to exploit the enemy's temporary weakness was unsuccessful. The Kikeichu reacted to the danger to their owner. So it turned out that Shino lost consciousness, and Kankuro was attacked by his bugs. Glory to Kami-sama, Shibi-san was present in the arena. He was able to recall his son's beetles, but the battle itself turned out to be a draw. Although I would award the victory to Shino, it is unlikely that Kankuro will quickly recover from such an experience, no matter how much he develops a phobia of beetles. The next fight was between Sasuke and Gaara, and to be honest, it was because of him that I was most worried. In the previous world, it was he who became the Rubicon, but I couldn't say anything about this world yet. You can't attach bad feelings to the matter. However, the fight itself was quite interesting to watch. Sasuke was in no hurry to pull out all his trump cards and began an attack with the already boring water dragon, trying to get as much sand wet as possible. Quite a successful move, it's worth noting. It's not fair. Shikaku's voice broke through all the barriers I had put up. He knew that Gaara couldn't control wet sand. Did you seriously expect nobility from the Uchiha? Kurama's astonished voice was heard. Shikaku, you amaze me. Shut up, you're giving me a headache. I barked at them. After all, these two sometimes bother me terribly. In that world, Matatabi calmed them down, but in this world I have yet to meet her, because I just don't want to wake her up. While I was distracted by the bijou, the situation in the arena changed radically. I don't know how much chakra Gaara donated to Shikaku, but the entire ground under Sasuke's feet turned to sand. He barely managed to climb onto the wall of the arena. However, everyone understood perfectly well that this could not continue for long. Even though Gaara was a Jinchuriki, and already accustomed to using bijou chakra, he still had a transmission limit. Quite big, but still. And Sasuke had more experience. A couple of moments, and now the Uchiha is engulfed in lightning. It looks like the Raikage's cover, but not him. His speed increases many times, and now he rushes towards Gaara, intending to finish everything with one blow. If at the very beginning the sand reacts sluggishly, due to the inability to control such a volume, then the closer Sasuke gets to the enemy, the more careful he has to be. True, despite all his speed and lightning protection, he did not have time. The sand stood in front of him like a dense wall. He was barely able to penetrate it, but he was no longer able to strike. Although he didn't need to, Gaara made one of the most common mistakes. He looked the Uchiha in the eyes. Instant, and now they freeze opposite each other. The sand begins to slowly fall off Sasuke, losing its killing properties. Just a couple more seconds and Gaara's eyes close, and he falls into the arena, and my fiancé looks at the dumbfounded examiner with a smug grin. Hey Shikaku, what's wrong with Gaara? I asked the Tanuki, but in response I only hear sniffling. Hey! He's asleep! Kurama's satisfied voice was heard. Your Uchiha caught him and the Jinchuriki in Genjutsu. And even though I don't like these red-eyed bastards, now I'm even grateful. Kurama! I sighed doomedly, watching as the examiner approached Gaara, and at that very moment explosions were heard throughout the entire area of the village barrier. The next moment was that claps were heard throughout the arena, and it was filled with smoke. Naruto, hold your breath, it's sleeping gas. I hear Kurama's voice, and the next second his chakra burns out what I had already inhaled. Thank you. I take out a piece of cloth and moisten it with water. The air purification seal easily falls on the cloth. A few more moments to wrap it around your face and assess the situation. I hope it's not that bad. Chapter 35. Attack. Attempts to look around did not yield anything special. Clouds of gas swirled everywhere where my gaze fell. Crap! In such a situation, only Aburaim and Anbu have a chance to remain conscious, perhaps also Uzumaki. I'm far from the only one who can put filtering seals, and Uchiha who have achieved Mangekyo. Simply put, barely 1/100th of all the Tasan shinobi at his disposal. I hope Kaa-chan is okay. However, next to her are Anbu and there must be one of the Uchiha, so there is no need to worry. On the contrary, you should be glad that my Ototo were not dragged here. Even she would have problems fighting with babies, and so her hands are free, which is good. If you get rid of the gas, then there will be more shinobi. After all, jounin are immune to poisons. Kurama's reasonable voice sounded in my head, and I could only slap myself on the forehead. Somehow I didn't think about this. Don't worry about Kushina. She neutralized the gas before you and secured a good piece around herself with a barrier, like some of your other relatives. Thank you. I mentally thank my red-haired friend and call on several clones. Unfortunately, I don't have Suetun, and this is a problem. Without water, you can't quickly get rid of the gas, which, judging by the fact that it's much thicker below, is clearly heavier than air, which means you can't easily blow it out of the arena. We have to improvise. Thanks to Kachan, I have 3 more sealed water dragons, made by a master of the water element, so they are large and of high quality. This is a problem. Once released, it will be difficult to break them into individual droplets. However, I already have an idea. All I have to do is test its viability and pray to all the gods that it will work. I'll give you enough chakra, but create more clones. Kurama intervened in my train of thought. 3 to release the dragons, 3 to disassemble them into components, and 3 to speed up the fall of precipitation. Understood, nod again, and then the 3 clones leave in different directions of the arena. Just a few more moments and water dragons burst into the air, into which Futon Kiryu Ranbu * crashes, and many small drops hang over the arena with the nearby territory, which with the help of Futon, Tatsu, but Ashigoto *** I quickly direct downwards. Fortunately, due to the fact that I increased the area of use of the equipment, it has greatly lost its fighting qualities and now it can only knock you down, and not turn into minced meat, as it was originally intended to do. I can only hope that my efforts were not in vain, because the techniques consumed a lot of chakra and, if not for Kurama, I would no longer be a fighter. Still, it's good that I have it. Having finished dealing with most of the gas, which it was unclear who had called for, I looked around much more confidently, mentally rejoicing that, despite the amount of work done, only 3 minutes had passed. However, I was not happy for long. Here and there I could see people fighting with. No, the Suna shinobi were in the minority here and were themselves attacked, but Odo was noticed, and heavily. However, it is worth noting that I have not yet seen Orochimaru. As soon as I thought about this, a rumble was heard not far away and Manda appeared, which, however, was immediately blocked by Katsuyu and Gamabunta. Well, everything is fine there, and there is no need to worry. Erosenin and Biechan will be able, if not to kill, then to detain and put their comrade to flight. Naruto, go help the Uchiha. Kurama growled. He won't be able to fight off several shinobi at once and protect Gaara. May you dream of Madara every night. I couldn't hold back my curse when I finally looked at the arena, where it was now fun. There were 5 people pressing on Sasuke at once, and while he was holding them back with the help of Susano, however, judging by how pale it turned and the fact that the Uchiha himself was trying to move less, he had no chakra left at all. But the phantom pains that always what caused him to use this technique did not go away. It's bad, you should hurry. I gloomily look back at Sakura lying nearby and understand that I can't leave my comrades. But there's no point in leaving the clones. They are not rivals to the Jounin, who form the backbone of the attackers. I want to help you, Shino's voice, heard in close proximity, made me jump. Shino, you scared me. Only when I saw my former classmate did I find the strength to breathe a sigh of relief, not an enemy, and then, frowning, ask, how? I am Aburame, since you forgot, he responded. The beetles that we call Kakachu have neutralized their poison. However, now we will talk about help, which I will not be able to provide. The harm was too strong for me. I won't be able to move so fast, and I'll only get in the way. Can you power the barrier around this room? I look impatiently at Sasuke, who is still holding back the attackers. If you give me access to your jutsu, I will be able to share chakra. Shino nodded and with difficulty reached me, and I, without wasting time, began to fill the seals. My barrier is not the strongest, but if we take into account the protection of the arena itself, which I will strengthen, albeit in a separate nook, then it will be enough. Still, there are only genins here and we are not the most important resource. Children will be the last to be smoked. I'll leave it to you. Activating my barrier and setting it at Shino, I nodded and, without waiting for an answer, rushed to Sasuke, summoning a couple of clones in flight. My clones barely have time to pull Sasuke out from under the blow, and one slams a rinnegan into the back of the one who had already reached out to the unconscious Gaara. Just a few more moments and both guys are dragged to the wall of the arena, and there one of the protective seals that Akawaji-sama told me about is activated. Now all that remains is to continue to distract these shady individuals while the clones are busy putting the guys in order. I look at the dissatisfied people and understand that I can't deal with them that easily. Their eyes are widened too suspiciously, plus it is clear that they are feverish. Only one stimulant gives this effect. It is also called Last Chance, and for good reason. Its name explains everything. It can only be used once, and it gives unimaginable power, but in return, every minute of its use is used for a year of life, even more when moving and fighting, and there is no neutralizer. Well known, at least, although a couple of good doctors can remove it from the body, but this is not about them. That's why they use it only in extreme cases. After using it, there is no turning back. Here, even the capabilities that have greatly increased since the moment I got there will not help me. You'll have to use Kurama's chakra to keep up with them. Another suicide bomber has arrived, one of them says with a grin, watching with extreme indifference as the shinobi, whose spine was damaged by my clone's rinnegan, tries to get up. He doesn't succeed, but he doesn't give up and doesn't seem to even notice that the blood is flowing out of the wound in spurts. I don't remember such abomination in that world. Orochimaru was a bastard, but with certain principles. Apparently, this is completely different. Crap. How I lack information. Well, should I have asked the Arrow Sennin about him while I had the opportunity? That's right, nothing but caution, but now guess what the reason is. Perhaps it's not the serpent's fault at all. How many other bastards can there be in this world? We can only hope that Hirako didn't show up here, otherwise it will be completely sour. Agree, the second of Sasuke's former opponents added with a grin. I wouldn't interfere. I wish I could live a little longer, baby, otherwise you'll die right now. After all, we only need Jinchuriki and a couple of Uchiha bodies for the Master's experiment. An experiment? I asked again in surprise, growing cold from a bad feeling. Well, couldn't Orochimaru and Hirako work together? Two experimental scientists under one roof, this is too much. However, it's worth trying to find out more, and taking time won't hurt. Should Shikaku wake up? And the time of these 5 is numbered. Doesn't matter, the third grunts, and I clearly begin to understand that I cannot cope with all 5, although if you don't count the crippled one, then with all 4, alone. The only chance may be Kurama's help, but I can't let on the fact that I'm the Jinchuriki yet. That's not why Ka-chan is taking such risks now. I need to come up with something urgently. To the side. I hear Kurama scream and, obeying my reflexes, I roll to the side. On time, several kunai are stuck in the place where I was standing, but no one is going to give me time to see who threw them. The feeling of danger forces you to step aside and, taking out one of the kunai donated by Toussaint, block the tanto attack of the next enemy. Kaito, carry it in. Obito's voice sounded, and the remaining enemies who had already gathered to attack me were blown away by several projectiles of fire. Taking advantage of the fact that the attacker was distracted by a new character, I intercepted another kunai from the pouch and, making a turn around my axis, made the jounin lose his balance for a moment, who fell after his tanto. One more moment and my kunai, soaked in futon, pierces his jaw from below, digging straight into his brain. Now it doesn't matter how much they experimented on him, and whether he was injected with a stimulant. A body with a destroyed brain dies instantly. Thank you, Obito-san, I nod gratefully, casting a quick glance towards the hidden guys. Judging by the way my clones are bustling around there, things are not going well for the guys. Kurama, how are they? Unconscious. The Uchiha overstrained his eyes, and now we are looking at how to neutralize the danger of blindness without surgery. Kurama said gloomily. With Shikaku it's more difficult. There's some kind of inverted genjutsu, so simply pouring in chakra won't help, you'll have to first get Sasuke in order. How much time will you have to spend on this? I clarify, not forgetting to track 2 living opponents out of the corner of my eye. About 10 minutes came the clear answer. Too many capillaries in the Uchiha's eyes have burst, he will have to clean out the bruises and speed up regeneration. Ideally, do not use dojutsu at all for about a week. You understand that this is unrealistic, right? I asked quietly, calculating opportunities to speed up treatment, but not finding them. Main that your clones understand, he snorts displeasedly in response. I would have taken the chance and deprived him of those damned eyes. I don't think this is a good idea, I muttered dissatisfiedly, realizing that Red can't be changed and I should now focus on the enemies, and not on a squabble with him. It's good that at least I can talk to him mentally, otherwise it would be completely bad. This is my duty as a sensei and just a jounin, Obito chuckles, thereby distracting me from the squabble with the fox. Before he can finish speaking, he throws out his hand with a sharp movement, and after a few moments I understand that 2 more are not dangerous, because you can't really fight with a kunai in the eye socket. I can only be glad that sensei killed them, because I didn't even feel their presence. Badly. How are they? He asks more seriously, vaguely waving towards the barrier enclosing the guys. Alive, I responded, and taking advantage of the fact that the attackers were in no hurry to attack, studying the new character, I approached the wounded man, whose spine had also been damaged by my clone. A sharp blow to the crown and now I'm completely sure that he's no longer dangerous. But who knows? Like the rest of the genin, Shino maintains the barrier there. Well, that's the main thing, he nods and, looking at the remaining 2 opponents, asks, right or left? Right. I responded instantly. You'll have to go left, sensei.